I'm the Special Needs Services Supervisor.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself, your job, what you do, and whether or not it is you like what you do and how you got into it.
I love what I do. I work here, it's been about almost 15 years, and I primarily work with kids that have disabilities in childcare settings. So if parents call us and they're looking for childcare, I'm usually the one that takes that call, provides them with referrals to different programs that have openings in the area. And then once they're placed into childcare programs, if the teachers need any support, that's also another part of my role. And this new project that we have is just an extension of some of that work that I do.
And so you work both with children with special needs and their parents.
Correct. Yep.
So why is this something that you wanted to do?
Because I just saw the impact of, when the kids are suspended or expelled from childcare, it, affects their social emotional development, their ability to, establish and maintain friendships. And also, when they are asked to leave, it impacts the parent's ability to work. So just kind of seeing this trend, it was happening in the city of Rochester and across the nation when we had the opportunity to apply for this grant. We just felt like it was a perfect fit because it aligned with their mission and what we were seeing as a need in our area.
And so before we get into the new service that's available,
Mhm.
it's funny, I was talking to my coworker Sam about this earlier today, but we were talking about the concept of little traumas, right? Like little things that happen in your life that
Mhm.
maybe you don't even recognize, things that are traumatic, but they definitely are, and they kind of impact you and stay with you for your whole life. And sometimes understanding that trauma is different for each person, and like it can
Mhm.
be something really small that is a
Mhm.
trauma for someone. So that what you're saying kind of ties into the conversation that we were having is if you are a child and you are in a classroom setting and something happens where you act out or and then in turn you're kind of taken out of the classroom setting. I guess my first question would be can that be traumatic for children?
Absolutely, I would say so, because we know that behavior is communication. So, if a child is acting out, we know it's for a certain reason. And when, the teacher doesn't quite know what's going on, they may ask the child to leave. Um, and oftentimes, when the child leaves, I had, a previous situation where I was working with a child, and unfortunately, he was asked to go to a different placement. And the mom had called and said that he wants to know why he can't go back and play with his friends. So those kind of transitions, are traumatic for young kids, that they might be in a setting with their kids or their friends for a number of years. And then when they're removed for various reasons, it can, I bet it does stick with them, and it is a traumatic experience.
It really can be. And so before we move forward with the new initiative, new program,
Yeah.
can you tell me a little bit about where you work, what it is?
Mhm. So we've been around, oh my gosh, over 40 years as a childcare resource and referral agency. So our core service really is the referral, where parents call, looking for childcare. We have a team that reaches out to different licensed or registered childcare programs in the area, provide those referrals to the parents. And it's an ongoing process. So if they need, just different placements at different times, we're certainly available to support them in that way. In addition to that, we provide trainings. Providers are required to take a certain number of trainings every 2 years, which is their licensing period. So we also do that as well and provide a lot of technical assistance. We have our food program as well, and we also register and inspect family childcare programs as well as school-age childcare programs.
Is this a free is this a free
Mhm.
service? So if you're a mom with a child with special needs, you can just call and
Yes. Yep. Our referral service is free. And like I said, they can use it as many times as they need. Parents might move or switch jobs. So we can help them, whenever they need, a different situation.
So Bethany, how did you learn about how to essentially do your job? Like how do you know? I mean, this is something that is probably challenging for parents to navigate for sure. But I mean, you being in the position, you probably get thrown a lot of questions that are probably very specific and even sometimes probably specific to New York State. So
Mhm.
how did you learn what you need to know to help? Because this can be a really difficult time for parents. So where do you get your information from, and how did you learn how to help during a challenging time?
Yeah. So it's definitely a lot of community connections. We, try to connect with agencies that are doing, different things, but also, coming together for a common purpose. We definitely do a lot of networking. And my personal position, my background is in special ed, and I was a special education teacher in an inclusive classroom for a number of years. So I had some of that, background coming into this position. And then really it's just based on, the parent need. And we're just dedicated to ensuring that the parents find the proper resources so that, the kids can be successful, the parents can work. So I would say you learn as you go. You really just talk to the families, figure out their needs. And that's just a core value that we have at the council, is looking at the family as a whole and how we can support them.
All right. So now that we know a little bit about like kind of what you do and how,
Mhm.
can you tell us about this? It looks like it's a new
Mhm.
service. Can you tell us what that service is?
Yeah, so our special need consultation program, we received the funding a few months ago, which is great. And like I said, it's kind of an extension of what I was doing, with going in and helping the teachers, learn different skills and strategies to work with the kids that had special needs. But there was an increase of requests for the number of teachers that needed some help in their classrooms. So definitely COVID kind of just like shed a light on the need out there. Many kids were getting kicked out for a variety of reasons. So that definitely impacted families' ability to work. And once we noticed that need, we started to look for different opportunities that would help us to navigate that. So the process with applying for the grant, it just, like I said, the mission aligned with our goal to, reduce the suspensions and expulsions, with kids with special needs. And it's a free service. We do the training, we do a lot of modeling. So the teachers might understand some of the basics of child development, obviously, but just kind of adjusting it and customizing it to the needs of the kids, so that they can be successful. And like I said, they can work with us for up to 12 weeks. And we also leave like a capacity. So if behaviors start to arise again, we certainly can go back out and help the teachers at a later time as well.
And so what are some of the strategies and supports that
Mhm.
concepts or conversations that you have
Mhm.
with parents and teachers? Like give us an example of what would be a strategy in dealing with a child who has special needs, who may be acting out, like what different approach could you take with a child that's in that situation?
Yeah, definitely. So we get a lot of calls for kids that are nonverbal or have limited communication abilities. So we'll go in and look at the classroom environment, look at any potential triggers for that behavior, and then we just have reflective conversations with the teachers, and they'll let us know kind of what a goal is, and that I'm having trouble communicating with this child. So a strategy that we might suggest would be to implement a visual schedule, and just kind of outline what is expected throughout the day. And then the kids can use that visual to, follow the directions, have that established routine. And we would, certainly go in and model that and show the teachers the importance of doing it, how to do it. And then we'd follow up with that reflective conversation, and then see when the providers are comfortable. We don't just do it boom, 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 and then, there's no extended support. We just show them, watch them use the intervention and see if it's something that they're comfortable with. And then if we need to change anything, we could do that as well. And another thing that we also do is providing different resources. So going along with the communication challenges, we could purchase certain electronics for the kids. We had an opportunity to purchase iPads, a lot of different sensory things, large motor items as well. So all of that just ties together to.
You just cut out for a minute there. You
Okay,
said
perfect.
they all tie together to reduce.
The suspensions and expulsions, because oftentimes there could be a financial barrier, and the providers might not be able to afford some of those more expensive items. And with this grant, we're allowed to, allows us to go in and fill that gap.
And I mean, if you have, okay, so if you have a child in a classroom
Mm-hmm.
who is special needs and say they're like acting out, which it could be like, it could look like so many different things, right? Like it could just be making noise, it could be getting up and running around. I guess, what would your advice be in a situation where behavior becomes an issue for the adult in the room? Like, what would your recommendation be to, number one, the parent, to have a follow-up question about whatever incidents are happening, and then your conversation with the teacher who kind of needs to act in more of an immediate sense to diffuse the situation to sort of prevent it from escalating and then resulting in a bad situation or a suspension or something like that?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So our approach is meant to be preventative. So when parents call us and they're looking for a childcare program, and we collect all that information, and we know that the child has a special need, we could go out, with the parent to look at different childcare options. And we just encourage them, just to be open and honest, look at the environment, and just kind of think about, are there any triggers, ahead of time? So that's one thing that we can offer and encourage parents to do. We might get called in, a child might already be enrolled in the classroom and the teacher's noticing a lot of those challenging behaviors. And so what we would do, it's like a phased approach. So we would go in, talk to the teachers, discuss what they're seeing, do some observations, and then set some goals. Because it is a very individualized program. So some kids might need more visuals, some kids might be overstimulated based on sensory things in the environment. And then we can come up with a plan to reduce those behaviors based on the needs. So we try just to get in, as soon as the parents call us, we know where the child's going before, some of those behaviors might arise. And we also encourage a lot of training for the providers to be a part of. It is something that we can offer as in-services, where we'll go out and train the whole staff on different topics, certainly around like autism, ADHD, things like that, and just have them reflect on what they're seeing in their own classrooms, and then set goals, and then we'll walk them through those goals to make sure that they're comfortable and capable to support the kids.
Yeah, and in terms of, I guess my next question would be like, are there situations where, have you run into situations where parents maybe don't know that their child even has special needs? That was kind of the first part of that question. And how would you approach that? And then the second part of that question would be, what could be a trigger for a child with special needs? Like, what's an example of a trigger?
Yeah, so for our younger ones that aren't quite diagnosed yet, so up to 3 years old, we would have the parents go through the early intervention process. And so we would connect them with that agency, and then they would kind of take the lead in putting, some supports in place with their service providers. In addition to that, if the parents are just kind of unsure a little bit, if there are some possible special needs there, we also do like a developmental assessment, and we have, something set to the parents and with the teacher, and we just kind of come together and compare notes and looking for patterns in the behavior. So is it occurring when there's a lot of children in the classroom, it's too loud and they get overstimulated, or, transitions, aren't smooth and they don't have warnings. So that could be a potential trigger as well for the behaviors. So it can just be like the littlest things that, a preschool teacher might not think of, that we could go in and say, okay, play music during transition, give the child a warning, and just kind of letting them know what's going to occur. And that just kind of reduces that anxiety and will reduce oftentimes the challenging behaviors.
Oh, interesting. So like if you take away the shock value of a trigger, it sometimes isn't a trigger or might not be a trigger.
Yeah, especially with that limited communication. So if something changes, they're not able to express their feelings, they could, have a meltdown or something like that. And a teacher, maybe not with a special ed background, might not understand why this child might be having a meltdown, but it could be because, somebody took their toy or they don't like the food that's being served. So it's really just being really intentional throughout the day that could turn a child's day around. And
Well,
then,
I mean, it's the examples that you gave. It just, I always, with these stories, I always say like it's also could be triggering for an adult. You take my toy away,
exactly,
or you don't give me food that I want. Like I might also,
exactly.
you steal something from someone if you're as an adult. So it's these same kind of triggers, apply to adults
Yeah,
oftentimes.
absolutely. And we do, get them thinking about that as well. And it's kind of like, well, how would you feel, if this
Right.
happened to you, or you couldn't communicate, how you're feeling. And oftentimes, we'll model it and they'll, carry out, that goal. And they're like, oh, I don't need as much support or resources as I thought. It's
Right.
just that guidance and modeling and that follow up.
Right. Like, and the loud noises, it's helping me understand a lot. It's such a simple concept, but like if you are given a heads up, like again, as an adult, that there's gonna be a fire drill,
Mhm.
if you have PTSD or something, and then you hear this loud noise, but it's coming, it's completely different than if it catches you off guard. So
And that's the other important piece too, in terms of safety, that we want to get them thinking about all those potential triggers with the loud noises. Because I know personally, when I was a teacher, I didn't know, a trigger for one of my kids was, the sirens going by and that she would try to escape.
oh,
It wasn't till, we had a conversation with the teachers and the parents and kind of getting
figured
everybody on
that
the same
out. Yeah.
page,
Yeah.
I had learned that. So we do take our own personal experiences as teachers into the reflective conversations that we have with them.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of this is also about being mindful and kind of just polite. Like, thinking about, you have a classroom. It's tough if you're a teacher, of course. You've got
Correct.
a lot of kids that you have to manage, which is not easy. I don't know if I
Mhm.
could do it, but
Mhm.
it's also it's nice to think about each child as being an individual, right?
Mhm.
And like trying to at least be mindful of the fact that every child is different and everybody has different things going on in their heads and different situations that they have going on behind closed doors that nobody really might know about. Um,
Correct.
how is this service that we're talking about today, this new, it's a consult kind of basic,
Consultation. Mhm.
how is this different from what you do? Like, how have you, has it gotten bigger? Has it expanded, or what? Do you have more Bethany's? Like, because what you do is very specific. So do you?
I do. We actually just hired two new special needs consultants, and it
Okay,
just expands our reach.
there you
So
go.
we have a team now, and we can spend more time in programs, because with one person, I only do so much with so many hours in the week. So now with,
Right.
you know, two more people, we can reach definitely more programs.
So it's
great.
expanding a little bit. You've got more help in the department.
Correct. Correct.
Do you have any statistics that you could share that might be helpful? I mean, I think I see, like, do we know, it says that there was a 2018 article by the Center for American Progress. Children with disabilities in early childhood settings represent about 13%, but
13%. Yep.
count for like the vast majority of suspensions, like they're 13% part of the population, but they're make up 75% of the total amounts of suspensions that happen. I mean,
correct. So it's, you know, when we use other studies, from Walter Gilliam did a study and showed that kids with special needs were expelled at 3 times the rate than their peers in the classroom. And it was even higher for kids that were Black and brown as well. And then just seeing those similarities that overlapped in our own agency, we know that this was a trend, you know, that we don't want to see, but unfortunately it is happening. And like the families that we worked with in the past, you know, we reached out and over 100 of them had experienced this, unfortunately, where their kids were asked to leave.
yeah. And hold on, I'm actually just looking at this really quick. So I think I have a really good understanding of it now. In terms of contact information, we can add your email, b.williams@childcarecouncil.com. We have a number that people can call.
Correct.
So this is in Monroe, Wayne, and Livingston.
Correct.
So, I guess, I mean, you really answered all my questions, whatever piqued my curiosity. Is there anything else that I should have asked you that I didn't, or anything else that you want to add about either the topic in general or the program or anything like that?
No, I think we covered everything. And like I said, hopefully next year we'll have more consultants and we can, you know, expand to different counties. I know we'll do what we can with the 3 of us, but definitely our goal is to expand our reach and how many families we can serve. So that is one of our goals.